What's going on, traders? Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys all had an amazing day, but as usual, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know exactly how my trading went today, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. And as you guys can see from the screen, I had another red day trading wise yet again, right? As far as my overall account, I was in the green, but that's primarily because Tesla did have a really decent day today, right? But as far as day trading wise, how I did, I traded both SQs and TQs, lost money on both, right? Lost nearly 1% alone on SQs, right? And then an additional $60 loss on TQ. So overall finished down about 1.6%, and that goes after having, a pretty decent loss yesterday as well, a 1.5% loss. So I've been trading like crap to start the week, and I definitely, need to acknowledge that. As you guys can see, I had a ton of filled orders today, over traded yet again, right? Literally didn't listen to anything I said in yesterday's video, completely went out the door, right? And I completely sucked yet again. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys know exactly where I think I went wrong, right? So maybe we can potentially learn from this, right, heading forward. But as far as what I actually saw going on, the Nasdaq, as you guys know, has been very overextended, right? But I, at the same time, don't want to be fighting direction and trying to predict when this thing is going to actually end up starting to sell off again, right? Because we've been on a really nice bull run lately. And, just it's every single time I've thought that we were approaching a previous resistance and we were going to find the top, we just continue to surge and form new highs, right? And so I need to respect the direction. But I was acknowledging that, we have been testing definitely more of a resistance area than a support area. And because of that, I was focused on SQQQ primarily. And so as soon as the market opened, we actually saw this thing start to sell off. And I unfortunately didn't get in very aggressively into SQQQ at all. I barely made any money on it, really. That was really just my mistake, thinking I wasn't too sure exactly where we were going to bounce, right? If you see on the bigger time frame what actually ended up happening, right? This thing, although it was selling off to start off the day, right? And we did identify a bit of a support around this general area in the past, right? I wasn't sure whether or not we were actually going to hold, but, that's why I was focusing on getting into SQs originally, right? But as I mentioned, this is where my big mistake made, right? So I was actually, getting in this not very aggressively, but once this thing started to pick up here and sell off here, this is where I started to go in aggressive yet again, right? Because I genuinely thought that we were going to make a new low, right? Which was definitely possible, right? We sold off very aggressively. We were going to retest the EMA, and I thought that we were going to potentially form a new low and test, more of a support area around here, right? Around where we previously bounced here. Because of that one, right, change in mindset for me, it ended up screwing up my whole day, right? So I got super hopeful thinking we were going to make a new leg down here, right? And if it did end up selling off to this previous support, I was going to end up hitting my 1% daily goal and being done, right? And that's really what I was just focused on, trying to walk away and be done on the day rather than, realize that there was a potential support that we've been testing, right, just yesterday, right, and the day before, and it could have definitely acted as a support now, right? Just because I thought that we could have potentially sold off to this support doesn't mean we had to, right? It was such a foolish thing of me to really think, right? Just definitely very naive of me. And once this thing started to change direction, I continuously kept trying to get into SQQQ, thinking we were going to sell off and form that new low, but we continue to ride the EMA up, right, and form these higher highs and higher lows. I was fighting direction, right, and then once I did finally start to get into TQQQ, I got in so late. This thing ended up peaking out to previous resistances, right, pulling on back. I got back into TQ, sized up completely. Then this thing ended up breaking below EMA and selling off. We had a huge sell-off, right? I ended up having to cut losses on that, got burned. And then as this thing started to pick back up, I started to focus on SQQQ again, only for this thing to pick back up all the way over here and for me to get burned, right? So I was on the wrong side of direction the whole day. If I just really waited for an ideal setup to form, I could have done so much better. And what would have been an ideal setup? Well, if I would have just noticed that during the pre-market session, we did peak out, right? We broke above the top VWAP for a brief second before we ended up pulling on back, right, and selling up. And so I could have waited for this thing to pick up towards the top VWAP, right? Approach that general resistance area again, and then shorted the market or got into SQQQ, right? Just doing that alone once on this trade, I could have made a decent amount of money. And then once it did pick back up and break above the top VWAP, right? It just in hindsight, it looks so clear, right? Just that this thing ended up peaking back up, right? And then got rejected the same way it did during the pre-market session and started to sell off. So there was so much money to be made, right? And the pattern wasn't necessarily the most unclear, right? Looking back in hindsight, I should have really stopped being so emotional and impulsive in sending trades and really waited for the margin to build up before getting into SQQQ, right? Or vice versa, waiting for the margin to build up before getting into TQQQ, right? If on this play here, I just, accepted that direction was changing and locked in my profit on SQQQ and then got into TQs on the way up, I could have made a killing there, right? And then as we did approach the previous resistance level, I could have gotten into SQQQ, right? So I made so many mistakes today, and I really do hope that you guys, were able to learn from it. I would definitely recommend, and I will try to implement moving into the rest of the week, trying to wait for this thing to build up margin so that the trade itself is worth it. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. I will be posting a recap tomorrow, and I hope to see you guys then. Take care and have a good rest of your day.